Someone asks you, what is international relations? Most of us would probably say it's about the relationship between countries. Duh. Or perhaps we think of wars, peace talks, military alliances, elections, world leaders shaking hands, human rights violated, or understandably dramatic headlines. Conflicts, crises, political upheavals dominate our news feeds. It's understandable why many people assume international relations is simply another name for world news. But that's only scratching the surface. International relations is not just about following current affairs. It is about understanding why those events happen in the first place. The discipline itself emerged in a very particular historical moment. When the First World War ended in 1918, millions of lives had been lost. The balance of power system that we will be covering in the next videos, that many European leaders believed would preserve peace, had failed catastrophically. This led scholars to ask an ambitious question. Can we study relations between nations scientifically enough to understand why wars happen and perhaps even prevent future ones? Today, the questions that international relation asks have become much broader. Why do countries choose cooperation instead of conflict? Why do some alliances survive for decades while others collapse? Why do sanctions sometimes work and sometimes fail? How does a war thousands of kilometers away affect fuel prices, food security, technology, or even the availability of computer chips? International relations tries to understand the forces that shape our increasingly interconnected world. And because the world itself is complex, international relations is naturally interdisciplinary. It draws ideas from political science, history, economics, law, geography, sociology, and today even from fields like anthropology, gender studies, and post colonial studies. No single discipline can explain the world on its own. However, to make things a little easier, the core dimensions or pillars of international relations have been defined. The first, political and security dimension, how nations protect national interest, considering aspects of war, alliances, peace building efforts. Second is the economic dimension, the international trade, global markets, financial institutions, sanctions, and development. The third is diplomacy and political economy, the formal strategies and communications to negotiate and resolve dispute. And finally, mentioned in a lot of books and journals, the social and cultural dimension, migration, human rights, climate change, identity, and culture. Perhaps the most important thing to remember from this episode is that international relations is not simply about memorizing today's headlines. It's about developing the ability to look beyond the headlines, to ask why events happen, whose interests are involved, what assumptions different countries are making, and why reasonable people often interpret the same event in completely different ways. As students of international relations, our goal isn't to pick sides, it's to ask better questions. But before we can understand why for the country's actions, we need to understand the actors in this. What do you mean it's not only countries as players in international relations? That's what we'll explore in the next episode.